You're now recognized for your 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chair Raskin and members of the committee. It's an honor to be here before you to provide information and to share our story about what brought us here to Washington, D.C. My name is Nicole Collier. I currently am elected to serve House District 95 for the last 5 legislative sessions. I currently am also elected to chair the Texas Legislative Black Caucus, which was founded in 1973 with 8 members. Today, we have 19 members. We are a bipartisan, bicameral organization with the goal in mind of addressing the issues affecting African Americans. I want to go back to some of the things that were talked about, and some of you may be asking, why did we ring the alarm? Why are we raising the concern about what's going on in Texas? Well, it's not just happening in Texas. It's happening across our country. We have seen a concerted effort in various states to pass legislation that would limit access to the ballot. It would not expand access, it would reduce access. And what is happening in Texas is no different. You heard about the Republican-appointed Secretary of State who said that the 2020 elections were smooth and secure, and yet we still found ourselves facing legislation to address the elections. I want to also point out some of the things that I want to respond to some of the things that were mentioned. Of course, there are some other legislation that was put on the call from the governor, one of them being critical race theory, which would whitewash the historic systemic racism that has happened in our country. Also is limiting access to legal abortion. That is also on the call. And I would remind everyone that the 13th check, our teachers, retired teachers, have not had a cost of living raise in years. And the Democrats have always advocated for additional funding for our teachers, including the 13th check. In fact, that same bill passed through the Democratic committee quickly and died in the Republican-controlled calendars committee. So we have stood for our teachers all along. Another thing that I want to remind you is that there was mention of the walkout of the quorum. That is a procedural method, just like the filibuster is in the Senate. If they don't like a procedure, a policy that's being presented in the Senate, they filibuster. That is just part of the rules, and that is where we have come to see. But what happened in Texas was that we tried to work with our colleagues. We provided amendments. Ms. T, which is Representative Thompson, sat through more than 23 hours of testimony. 400 people came and spoke against this bill, and yet only 65 for it. All the amendments that were presented by our Democratic colleagues were declined on party lines. In fact, there was a vote immediately following the hearing to pass this bill. So there was no interest, there was no even attempt to work and compromise and collaborate with our colleagues on this. Our backs were against the wall. There was no more discussion. We saw the writing on the wall just like it was during the regular session. I was on the conference committee for Senate Bill 7 during the regular session, and it's no different than what we saw in this special session. The bills that were filed would do more harm than good. They would limit access to the polls. You talk about, I've heard people say that we are opposed to voter ID. Well, let me tell you, Texas has been found to violate the Voting Rights Act of 1965 every decade since its passage. We cannot out-mobilize racist gerrymandering. And when you talk about having somebody represent the interests of the people, it only reflects the racist gerrymandering that has been taking place in Texas. So we don't have people that represent the communities that they represent. We need to make sure that we have communities, they have to have the ability to represent, elect a candidate of their choice, someone that represents their values, and we're not doing that in Texas. I just want to talk about one of the provisions in the bill. Ms. T, and forgive me, say, for instance, she registered to vote 20 years ago. There's a provision in this bill that would require someone who is eligible to vote by mail to insert their last 4 digits of their driver's license or social security number, or say they don't have one. Now, Ms. T may have registered 20 years ago. She may not remember which one she provided when she originally registered to vote. Under the provisions of this bill, if she put down the other number, even though it's the correct one, her ballot would be rejected. And there's no cure opportunity within this bill to cure her ballot, and she would not even know that her ballot had been rejected. So that's just one instance, and I welcome the opportunity to continue this conversation to provide additional information about why we sounded the alarm.
Thank you, Representative Collier,
Mr.
for your
Chairman?
testimony. I'm sorry?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I would ask that you remind each of our witnesses that they have taken an oath to tell the truth. Subject to that, Texas had a COLA in 2013 for teachers. The gentlewoman has led us to believe there were no COLAs that were given, no updates.
Okay,
And that is, Mr. Chairman, that is a direct lie before this committee.
Okay.
That is not truthful.
Without entering to the merits of that.
Well, we need to, because there's no reason to give your opening oath.
Chairman, I'm sorry, I don't know what the procedure is. It's Congresswoman Tlaib, but that goes directly to her character. She should be able to respond to that.
Okay, well, you know what I'd like to do? I want to continue with the witnesses. Obviously, there's some factual difference in point of view about a teacher COLA raise. I'm not quite sure how apposite it is to our hearing. So let's keep going, and we can come back, and we'll clarify that. I'm sure there was no ill intent on either side.
Mr. Chairman,
yes.
It's part of her testimony, and it was meant to mislead this committee.
Okay, and I'm sure that there will be a clarification if there was any misstatement there. Why don't we go ahead and recognize Representative Clardy, who's now recognized for 5 minutes for his testimony.